Greetings and welcome to a hotel room in Bend, Oregon. It's the end of the first week. Actually, today is day 7, and I had planned that every week or 10 days, depending on how I feel and the weather and everything, I would take a break for a day, a rest day to recover. I know my legs really need a day to recover. This week has been strenuous, to say the least. I expected it to be tough getting started. I knew I wouldn't be completely trained for this at the beginning, and I would have to build up my stamina along the way. And this first week has been a trial by fire in that way, but it's all good getting there. The first day, Mike's sister Mandy was good enough to give us a ride from Portland down to Heceta Beach. I always mispronounce that, outside Florence, where we dipped our tires in the Pacific Ocean, as you're supposed to, and then started east on 126. I think it's called the Florence Eugene Highway. It was a lovely ride, big shoulder, beautiful river, and the huge trees that are everywhere in Oregon for about the first 20 miles. Then the shoulders started disappearing and the traffic didn't slow down. So it was logging trucks and semis and RVs going by at about 60 miles an hour with us with very little shoulder. It was scary. Then the last 20 miles or so, it opened up a bit. There was better shoulder until we finally made it to Archie, Knowles Campground, which Michael had reserved a spot for us in advance. Sadly, it was hard for him to sleep because it was so close to that highway. So the road noise was a bit annoying, but it was okay. Anyway, we got to the Archie Knowles Campground, and I'm going to try to give every campground a name. This would be the Road Noise Campground. When we come to something unexpectedly cool, Michael's calling it tour magic. That's right, I got the name right. And we had a couple of examples of tour magic at the campground. A lovely couple that we met brought us some rhubarb and blackberry compote that they had made for us to have for dessert that night. So that was kind of awesome. And then we went to bed, slept well. Oh, here's something kind of strange. I never have trouble going to sleep. I have trouble staying asleep. So far on this trip, I have slept really well. Partly because of the exhaustion, I guess, and I don't know what else, but I've been sleeping really well, including that first night. Part of the reason we've been sleeping so well is that the lows have been from the high 40s to the low 50s, which is just great sleeping weather, in my opinion. And then the daytime highs have been high 70s to low 80s, which is nice. For this time of year, it's been just a perfect week of weather, including that first day, just breathtakingly perfect. I know there's going to be thunderstorms. There's probably going to be tornadoes. There's going to be blistering heat, but so far, the weather has been fantastic. We woke up the next morning, had breakfast, and another bit of tour magic. I think they call them custodians of the campground, the guy that lives right there in a little trailer, offered to get us through the Archie Knowles Tunnel or the Knowles Tunnel. I'm not sure which. Anyway, something I've been dreading since I first started planning this route was how to get through that tunnel. There's a little button you can push when you're about to enter the tunnel that makes some lights come on that say bicycles in tunnel, but I'm not sure how much that would really work. And if there's a big log truck coming towards you while you're trying to go through this narrow little tunnel, 70 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, not something I wanted to deal with. So the tour magic was that the custodian, the guy named Greg, put our bikes in the back of his pickup truck and drove us through the tunnel. Yay. As soon as we got going, this guy was driving fast, and I was in the back of the pickup truck holding onto the bicycles. My helmet immediately flew off into the road. So once we got through the tunnel, dropped off the bikes, we went back around and got my helmet. And the other loss on that trip through the tunnel, because of the wind, I didn't expect it to be that fast. On the back of my bicycle was a little sign that said "Believe" from the Ted Lasso TV show. And it blew off and was lost. So I no longer have my Believe sign that Bruce so nicely made for me, but it was cool while it lasted. Anyway, we got through the tunnel. That was a bit of tour magic. Then, to avoid a little bit of 126 and its heavy duty traffic, Michael suggested that we take a gravel road to the side that looked like a bit of a shortcut. I don't like gravel. I don't feel secure on this 90-pound bike. Yeah, it's turned out to weigh about 90 pounds with food and water on that uncertain a surface. But we did it. The gravel road was beautiful. There were a couple of wooden bridges, which were just fantastic. But I'm nervous anytime I'm on gravel, and I was for the whole few miles that we were on this back road. And then when we came up to the end of it, I went to stop. I hit some loose gravel mixed with ash. There's volcanic ash all around here. And I went down. No big deal. I got scraped up a little bit on my leg and arm and broke a clip on one of my panniers and two of my water bottle cages, just falling over with that big heavy bike. But managed to get everything fixed. And no more gravel for me if we can possibly avoid it. Just with that bike and my lack of experience doing that sort of surface, I want to avoid it as much as I can. This bike is so heavy. Anyway, end of day 2, we made it all the way up to Fern Ridge Lake in Veneta, Oregon, which is just a bit west of Eugene. I keep looking down at my notes because actually I'm keeping a journal on this trip, which is something I've never done before in my life, but interesting and a good way to keep track of things so I know what to say on these videos. So I'm doing a journal. Okay, Fern Ridge Shores on Fern Ridge Lake in Veneta, Oregon. I'm calling that the goose poop camp because there was goose poop everywhere. But we had a great campsite right on the shore of the lake. There were showers and vending machines and everything right there, laundry. So it was a cool little campground, and we spent a night there uneventfully. There were eagles flying over the lake, and we even saw an eagle in the top of a tree as we were riding out of Veneta. So that was a cool campsite, a cool night. Beautiful scenery everywhere. Oregon is just overwhelmingly beautiful. Then we rode from Veneta into Eugene. Wasn't far at all, but there were a couple of challenging hills. I'm such a weenie, but it's a 90-pound bicycle. It's hard to pedal this thing up hills. Anyway, we got to Eugene, and we went to the REI store there. More tour magic. One of the guys there, his name was Russ, helped tweak my gearing and pump up my tires and gave me some other recommendations about how to get places and didn't charge me for it. So that was cool at REI. And he recommended another bike shop that we should go to for some parts I'd been looking for and that sort of thing. We went over there and started asking more questions about how to get from there in Eugene up to McKenzie Pass, which was our next goal. And unfortunately, we were told that the way to get there is back on Route 126, which had been kind of harrowing between Florence and Veneta, and that there was a bus and it was about to leave in just like 40 minutes. So if we hurried, we could catch a bus and it would take us to Mackenzie Bridge. So panic. We jumped on our bikes. I'd wanted to go to a drugstore. I'd wanted to get lunch. I wanted to do some shopping. I certainly didn't want to take a bus on any of this trip. But we did. We found the bus station in kind of a hurry, stood around for a while while we loaded our bikes. 53-mile bus ride from Eugene up to Mackenzie Bridge, which is the name of a town as well as a bridge across the Mackenzie River. I was really disappointed that we didn't ride our bikes the whole way. If I had it to do over again, I would have certainly stayed in Eugene and spent more time investigating routes and not jumped on a bus and jumped 50 miles ahead of our route. But it is what it is. That's the past. And we got to Mackenzie Bridge. Beautiful little town, like 3 stores in that whole town. On the Mackenzie River, kind of a staging area for heading really up into the mountains. We searched around there a bit trying to find a campground. Finally ended up in the Horse Creek Campground, which I'm going to name this one the Mosquito Camp, because we both got in our tents pretty early because there were a lot of mosquitoes. It wasn't a bad camp. There was a smidgen of Wi-Fi. I managed to listen to a couple of podcasts in my tent. Certainly no cell coverage up there. That's been the story of a lot of this trip. No cell coverage, no Wi-Fi, which is why I've been out of touch for a lot of this. Anyway, we spent our night there at the Horse Creek Campground, I think it was called, and then got up the next morning to head up Mackenzie, to head up to Mackenzie Pass. We got about halfway there, and it was really exhausting, and I still wasn't recovered from the day before. Michael found the most gorgeous campsite right at the entrance to the part of the national forest, national wilderness, where you go up onto Mackenzie Pass. So we spent the night in this beautiful place. Just going up to get water out of the spring was a wonderful little hike. It was just gorgeous. Oh, and on the way there, more tour magic. I was being exhausted, and a wonderful family that was in an RV stopped and gave us each a little can of root beer, which, believe it or not, made a big difference. A little cold can of root beer, and head on up the mountain. So that was kind of cool. So anyway, it's day 4, and we're about halfway between Mackenzie Bridge and the Mackenzie Pass. And we've decided to camp because the last 14 miles were brutally steep. Oh my God. And there's the same for the next 6 miles. So stopping here. One of the things that every good scout knows is that before you pitch a tent, you look up to make sure there's no dead limbs about to fall down and crash on you. Well, here, I hope you can see that there are just a million dead branches all over all of these trees, and any of them could spear right through your tent in the middle of the night. So there's something to think about at night while you're laying on your sleeping bag. So anyway, we're up at camp. It was so beautiful. And the trees were huge, and great night's sleep before the next morning, day 5, I think it was. We headed up to Mackenzie Pass. Good morning. It's a breathtaking morning between Mackenzie Bridge and Mackenzie Pass. We just spent the night at an idyllic campsite. I started out about 8. I imagine Michael will be an hour or 2 behind me, period. Like I'm dictating a message. I'm doing hike-a-bike, which is where it's so steep that it's not comfortable to pedal. I think this is about a 6 or 7% grade, but it goes on for like 25 miles. So I need a break, so I'm walking my bike. Hike-a-bike on a breathtakingly beautiful Sunday morning in the Oregon deep woods. This is another check-in from my hike-a-bike up to Mackenzie Pass. There's snow back there, and I understand there's going to be a lot more at the top, so that's kind of exciting. A bit of snow. Michael even collected some yesterday to make an ice pack for his back. So, onward. One more little check-in from this hike-a-bike. This is incredibly steep. It's switchbacks everywhere. I've got on the bike every now and then, but for the past 3 miles, I think I've been walking more than I've been riding. But still, this beautiful Sunday morning, it's just incredible up here. I'm not sure if it's worth this brutal climb, but it is absolutely beautiful. And let me turn this around. There's a whole lot of this. Can you see the 2 layers of maybe 3 layers of the road down there? That's what I just came up with, very little switchback. Oh my God, I've never attempted anything like it. Woohoo! Along the way, there were a lot of historical markers, and I'll try to show you pictures of those. And a lot of elevation markers, 5,000 feet, snow up here. And more markers, people freezing to death, that sort of thing on their way to the top. Finally, at the last haul to the top, cars were not allowed, so it was strictly bicycles from that point on up. Well, I guess there could be hikers because the Pacific Coast Trail crossed right here. But this is the promontory, the D. Wright Observatory. And this guy standing guard. But up here, man, it's a mile high. There's Michael. And that is the summit of Mackenzie Pass. The 3 sisters are absolutely gorgeous from up here. Those of you who know me well know that I'm almost never at a loss for words, but it was so beautiful up there. The lava fields everywhere, and the 3 sisters, the mountains, and in the distance, Mount Washington. Barely off in the distance, you could even see Mount Hood all the way up near Portland. The views were just incredible. The sky was so blue, the snow was so white. It was really absolutely amazing. But from there, back on the bikes and down into the town of Sisters. I don't have any pictures of that because we were moving so fast, just flying down the hill. Not quite as far down as it was up because we're now on the high desert. But next stop was the town of Sisters. We had a lovely meal. I ate more than I thought I possibly could, but I was so famished. And then we found a campsite in a bit of national forest or national wilderness. National forest right outside of Sisters. Had a perfectly reasonable night's sleep. Got up the next morning and biked to Bend. So we headed down from Sisters into Bend. Only about 25 miles. Started off on the very busy Route 20. Lots of trucks and people speeding by us, but we made it and then turned off onto beautiful mountain roads. The views of the Three Sisters in the distance were fantastic. Lots of beautiful ranches, smelling the sagebrush. It was just a lovely ride. If you've been paying really close attention, you may remember that I planned to stop every week or 10 days and just recover, clean up the bike, do whatever repairs are necessary, and just let the muscles mend. So when we finally got into the lovely town of Bend, that's it. We checked into a hotel. We spent last night, now we're spending all day just cruising around Bend, going to all the bike shops, and we're going to spend a second night in the hotel. So one full day of rest. Then we're off eastward. Oh boy. We've gone to every bike shop in town, asked for the best way to get to Boise, and it looks like there isn't one. So it's probably going to be at least another week before you hear from me again, of anything of substance at least, because we're going to be taking this long route of about 360 miles up into the mountains again, lots of hills, to try to make our way down to Boise. So that's it from Bend, and next time you hear from me, it may be in Idaho. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a great day. Thanks.